It's the 19th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Offsides with Mark Wright. The satisfaction that you get right in here.
That's what it means to be an offsider. Are you bold enough for truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You can't handle the truth. Then this show is for you. Offsides with Mark Ryan.
This is
Watch, Mark's going to run in here in about 3 seconds, completely out of breath, huffing and puffing. What did you forget? Be real. What did you forget?
Some notes.
You should throw a flag on you to start the show.
Yeah. Was here, then I wasn't. What is good, my friends? It is fantastic to have you guys here with us on a hump day edition of the show. It's crazy. You're here, you're ready to go. The show music is coming up. You realize, oh my goodness gracious, I do not have a page of notes that I worked hard on for the opening segments.
False start on the offense.
False start on the offense. Yeah, that's exactly what happened, man. Fantastic to be here, guys. Ready to roll. Got some shout outs to give today, so we're excited about that. And we are jam-packed on a hump day edition of the show. Here's, of course, how you guys can take part. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663 to get to us here on the show. Also, big time thank you to everyone who's been chiming in on the YouTube page, which has just been like growing exponentially, man. It has been awesome to see. We have got, folks, this vote, Kevin Garnett and David Pearson, has been crazy in the last 24 hours, and we're going to update you on that. We'll have another Elite Eight matchup coming your way today, and our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. All of that is coming up on the show this afternoon, in addition to the following. I'm telling you what, guys, you've got a lot of different things going on in terms of the sports world. We've been doing our ACC and SEC team preview series, and today we're going to get to Vanderbilt. Now, I'm not sure if you saw this, Diesel. There was a picture posted by one Jake Crane of Vanderbilt Stadium, and they've got dirt everywhere, and it's under massive construction.
Yeah.
And Jake Crane wrote, do these guys know when the season is going to start? Are they aware that the season is starting?
Aren't you supposed to start major demolition immediately following the season, not right before the season?
That's exactly it.
I don't think they're going to need it, though. They could demolish half that stadium and not sell out the rest.
I mean, it's such a sad state of affairs.
Kick them out.
Guys, what would you do, honestly, in your heart of hearts, if you were Vanderbilt, right? Let's say you worked in the Vanderbilt athletic department, and what you had was whenever you play Georgia or whenever you play LSU or Florida or a team like that, that fan base sells out your stadium. You have none of your own fans there, and you want the money, right? So you want the ticket money, and you take the ticket money, but it's an eyesore on TV, and Florida and Georgia and LSU, their fan bases use it as an excuse to go hang in Nashville.
They should legitimately have a 25,000-seat stadium.
Yeah, let's have an easy win. Let's go to Nashville for the weekend. Let's party in Nashville and enjoy an easy win over Vanderbilt. That's become like an in vogue thing. And so I think with Vanderbilt, you've got a similar problem to the one that we see in UFC. Here's what I mean by that. UFC should be on network television. They should expose themselves to the largest audience. They should forego the short-term financial gain of being on pay-per-view, right? I understand that's turning down mega bucks, 70, 80, 90 bucks a pop. Is that what it costs to watch a UFC fight these days? Turn that down, get on network television, and make us care about who you are and your product. That's the chicken and the egg.
You're never going to grow your product on pay-per-view. You have to put it in front of as big of an audience as you possibly can.
And so Vanderbilt, they've got to forego the ticket sales of Georgia, Florida, LSU, etc. They've got to make sure that doesn't happen. I don't care if you have 6,000 fans in attendance, right? The problem for Vanderbilt is their location is one everyone wants to go to. And Vanderbilt has been completely unable to tap into the coolness factor of Nashville, Tennessee, much in the same way, Diesel, that a lot of teams struggle to tap into being in a big city. If I say to you,
Georgia State is a great example. They played their games in the Georgia Dome, and they never even sold tickets in the upper deck, but they still only had about 25% of the lower bowl filled. And then they bought the old Fulton County. Is it Fulton County Stadium? No, it was the Brave Stadium downtown. What was the name of that one before Truist?
Oh,
was it Fulton County?
That was Fulton County Stadium.
No, Fulton County was the old one. This is the Olympic Centennial Park.
Yeah, I got you.
Is that right? Yeah. So they bought that and they're turning it into their own, but they have the same problem. They just don't have any market penetration. They don't have any fan base in that market, and Vanderbilt's dealing with the exact same thing.
Yeah, and so Diesel, it's not just Georgia State. It's look at Georgia Tech in Atlanta.
That's true.
Like nobody in Atlanta. Like Georgia Tech has.
If you didn't go there, you don't care.
And it's what you and I always talk about in terms of like the attitude being, okay, we're going to add teams to get the market, as if Georgia Tech gives you Atlanta, when nobody in Atlanta watches Georgia Tech except the Georgia Tech alums.
Let's add North Texas to get Dallas.
And that's exactly the problem that Vanderbilt faces. And, I'll open today by asking you guys to put on your creative thinking hats, okay? You are Vanderbilt, okay? You are in the greatest conference in all the land. You realize why you're there, right? You are the pretty girl that is on the guy's arm, but you're adding no substance to the relationship whatsoever. Vanderbilt is the pretty girl. Their academics are the pretty girl that inflates the academics numbers for the SEC. That's the what you do for me, and it's superficial.
Vanderbilt is the Amy Farrah Fowler of the SEC.
Yeah, much in the way that, a pretty girl on a guy's arm is that they have no substance to their relationship whatsoever, right? It's a major issue. It's a major problem. My belief is that Vanderbilt needs to bite the financial bullet and steadfastly refuse to allow anybody to allow Georgia, Florida, LSU to snatch up all their tickets, creating a road game for their own team in their home stadium. At the same point, folks, and Chris Lee from Vanderbilt is going to be our ACC and SEC team preview series segment today. How many big city college football teams really run their city? How many big city college football teams are really tremendously successful? There's something to the Tuscaloosa of Alabama. There's something to the Clemson of Clemson, South Carolina. There's something to the university being the town. The University of Florida is Gainesville, Florida.
Do you really think UNC Charlotte has the Charlotte market? No.
Oh, come on.
No.
We're going to take Charlotte because they give us Charlotte, right? It's
besides, they're located in Concord. They're not even in Charlotte.
What is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, what is the reason why big city college football teams struggle to get a foothold? Like UCF, Diesel, they want you to know that they're Orlando's team, right? They want you to know that. They're not. I've lived in Orlando. Orlando, the breakdown of fans in Orlando is Florida 1, Florida State 2, Miami 3. UCF is the fourth most popular team in their own city, right?
Heck, Georgia might even be more popular.
Right. So why is that? It's like Pitt is decent, and they're in Pittsburgh, but they don't run Pittsburgh. They play in the Steelers Stadium, for crying out loud. Right?
Well, and it all comes down to success. In the city of Pittsburgh, Penn State, which is on the other side of the state, has a lot more success. I know Pitt has a little bit of success in their history, but not a ton. They don't. People want to latch on to winners, and if you don't have a winning culture in your university, I mean, I'm trying to think of how many big city schools are even good at football. And Southern Cal, that might be one of the only ones that I can even think of. And so it's a chicken or the egg situation. The chicken coming first is always football success, and then you get the market. You don't get the market, then you build the success. This is the strategy that tanked Conference USA because they took this markets strategy where they invited all these schools that came the crappy football tradition, but they're in a big city, so they think maybe we can build them into something and capture the market. It didn't work out. And then the American Athletics said, hey, well, let's give that a try. And they invited all of those same schools into what was once by far and away the best Group of Five conference in America. And now they're slipping. They're slipping big time. They're losing their best markets, Cincinnati, Houston, and they're picking up Charlotte, Florida Atlantic. Like what? Why? Birmingham, Alabama? You're giving up Cincinnati to get Birmingham?
Guys, if I ask you the question, how would you tackle the Vanderbilt issue? Right? Like, I'm going to put you in charge of turning things around at Vanderbilt. You know, I thought they did a nice thing. Clark Lee, he went from 2 wins in year 1 to 5 wins in year 2. Well, I don't know that they had to do what they did. He was signed through 2026. They gave him another 3-year extension through 2029. They were so worried they would lose a guy who was signed for 3 more years that they signed him for 6 more years. And should they ever fire him, they'll have to replace him, right? How do you overcome the Vanderbilt conundrum? Because we're going to talk Vanderbilt football today. Jake Crane on the show. This isn't an entirely Vanderbilt show, folks. Don't worry. But that's our ACC and SEC team preview series today. And as I was thinking about that interview, which will happen at 5:20 this afternoon, I said there's a bigger topic here. You know, like Jake Crane has this photo. If you haven't seen it, look it up. Jake Crane of Crane Company is a frequent guest on our show. He's got like this current picture today of Vanderbilt's football stadium, totally under construction. There's dirt everywhere. You know, and it's not that the problem is that it's on the field. It's all on the outside of the stadium, scaffolding and cranes. And it's like, gentlemen, like this is the disaster that is your football program, right? I remember in the pandemic, Florida never went into the locker room. Florida didn't fly into Nashville until the day of the game, got off the plane, drove to the stadium. At halftime, they sat on the field. And the reason is that they didn't want COVID to spread through the locker room because the Vanderbilt visitor locker room is tiny with no ventilation. Football-wise, they're a joke. And Clark Lee is doing a good job. Like, I've been reading some things that he's been doing to try to change that there, but it's a major priority shift that is needed.
Well, the question is, what the hell is Vanderbilt doing with their $50 million a year? Are they giving it to the research department so that they can cure diseases? Hey, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but it's not helping you compete in a football conference. I mean, what are they spending their money on? They're certainly not spending it on recruiting. They're certainly not spending it on top-notch facilities. What the hell are they spending their money on over at Vanderbilt?
So I'm going to do a little something special here. So we're going to give special recognition today to anybody who's got the best idea to solve what ails Vanderbilt.
Send them back to the FCS.
To make Vanderbilt a consistent winner. And then the second part of that is, how many teams are consistently good from big cities? Consistently good. I've got Georgia and Athens, Michigan and Ann Arbor, Ohio State and Columbus. Columbus is growing. Texas and Austin, Diesel, but again, Texas was dominant in Austin when Austin was not a big city.
Yeah, but Athens is not a big city either.
Right. Austin is growing as a city. Washington gets credit for being in Seattle. The reality is Washington is 30 minutes away from Seattle. Clemson in Clemson, Kansas State in Manhattan, not that Manhattan, Kansas. Oregon is in Eugene, LSU in Baton Rouge, Notre Dame in South Bend. You can go on, folks. You can go on. But I think the biggest reason teams from big cities struggle is that they get lost in their own cities. These cities have other entertainment options. Big cities are pro cities by and large. It was the biggest mistake I made, Diesel, in moving to Houston. I thought, man, Texas, Houston, football, king. And yeah, it is. but not for college football, brother.
By
Not
this
the-
logic, Fordham ought to field one hell of a football team.
Right. So there's something to that. There's something to the Vanderbilt conundrum in terms of being unable to penetrate Nashville. If I say to you guys, what is the it city in America today? What's the it city? Nashville's top 3, right? Nashville is on the come. Charlotte is probably top 10, but Nashville is top 3. And Vanderbilt is in that city. And it's kind of the perfect size for them. It's not too big, right? Like imagine for a moment if a Nashville ticket to see the Commodores play actually became cool. You know, like that is your job. Should you choose to accept it, if you're Clark Lee, make going to a Vanderbilt game cool.
I don't know anything about Vanderbilt. Are they planning on playing in the Titans Stadium this season while their stadium is under construction?
I have no idea. I think they plan on being ready to play this year, but they're nowhere close. Nowhere close. Yeah. So anyway, Vandy's fan base is busy studying. LOL. When I lived in Nashville, more people cheered for TSU than Vandy any day. What is TSU? Tarleton State University? Is that what that is?
Texas State?
No, it wouldn't be in Vanderbilt. When I lived in Nashville, more people cheered for TSU. Texter says, Mark, watching Mark on the webcam. I'm going to need you to button up a little more, sir. This is not a Bachelor audition. Seattle is a city in Washington, big guy. What did I say? Did I say it wasn't a city in Washington? I think Vanderbilt should reduce their stadium to 28,000 people. Tennessee State is in Nashville. I think Vandy should reduce their stadium to 28,000. And then I think they should put that SEC millions into getting the best 4 and 3 SEC money can buy. Is that a record, Spur Daddy? So anyway, guys, an overarching question, right? Because largely college football teams in big cities fail to find success. Largely, they're an afterthought in their own city. I've seen it a number of times. The most successful college football brands are in college towns. And I really think there's something to that. You know, like I tried to help Georgia Tech when I was in Atlanta. I tried to have their coaches on, head coaches on. I tried to have their bloggers on. I tried to give them a lot of love. And ultimately, I realized that it was a losing battle. You know, that no matter what anybody did, Georgia Tech was going to be a footnote in Atlanta. Jeff Collins thought he could change that. Jeff Collins is now unemployed, right?
Well, at least he got him away from the triple option.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, that's my feeling, ladies and gentlemen. What is yours? You are tasked with turning Vanderbilt around, making Vanderbilt a cool ticket.
Do you realize that Paul Johnson saddled 2 schools with a triple option they refused to get rid of for years after Paul Johnson was left? Georgia Southern just got rid of the triple option like 2 years ago. And they've been running it since Paul Johnson was there in the like mid 80s.
Yeah, like I don't know. You can have like a cute little run. You can pull an upset if you run the triple option because people aren't ready for it. But every time Georgia Tech played in a bowl game, they got smoked. And it's because you had time to prepare for that.
You got to run the veer.
Yeah, you had time to prepare for that, right? So what is it, guys? How do you tackle the Vanderbilt problem in Nashville? And do you guys have any theories that I haven't addressed yet on why big city college football programs largely struggle? You got to penetrate your city, right? USC has become an it ticket in Los Angeles. That's not easy to do.
I spent my entire 20s trying to penetrate this city.
That's right. TCU, are they an it brand in Dallas? You know the answer. Not even close, right? Not even close. And because of that, their success has not been consistent. So what is your idea to solve the Vanderbilt conundrum? Chris Lee, Vanderbilt, joining us at 5:20 p.m. today. Coming up next on the show, we'll talk college football programs under the most pressure. Under the most pressure in 2023. That, my friends, is next. And this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Friends, I have just recently gotten the final tally from yesterday's vote. David Pearson, Kevin Garnett, all platforms, and let's just say, well, that will be revealed at 4:20 p.m. this afternoon. Is the one seed going to the Final Four, or does David Pearson still have a run left in him? 4:20 p.m. this afternoon. We'll have a brand new matchup for you today as we whittle down the Elite Eight to the Final Four. And provided everything goes as planned, a week from today will be the championship matchup. A week from today, we will present to you the two combatants that have been voted the Upstate's favorite athlete of all time. 844 fan phone. That's 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show today. To our friends on YouTube, man, it is awesome, freaking awesome to see you. Always awesome to see you.
It's good to see Brandon Keeler in there, feeling froggy enough to jump in and mix it up with everybody in there. They're bestowing or talking about the virtues of the triple option offense in there. A lot of people love the TO in this thread.
That's it. Texter says, Diesel, please say penetrate again. That's where the ratings are.
Penetrate.
Texter says, and quick question, which one of you guys does the EA Sports sample from the video games? That's Diesel. What do you got, Diesel?
No, that's you. Yeah, he always does it on the. You didn't do the actual voiceover for the game.
Oh, or did I? No, you're right.
You were in the game as a tester, so you were a playable character.
That's true. But Texter, I'm happy to do it for you. NCAA football 2023 EA Sports. It's in the game. There you go. How did I do? How was that? Mark Cassie wanted me to tell you guys to thank you for the listeners for the kind words and well wishes. It has meant a lot to her and I. That says Brandon Keeler. So says Brandon Keeler, recovering from his heart attack and his subsequent surgery. Texter says Mark Vandy needs to move back to the FCS. Well, Texter, they're not even in the group of 5. They're in the best conference in college football. But they're a joke in the best conference in college football. They are the resume, the win patter for the rest of the SEC. Imagine how scary it would be for the South Carolinas, Kentuckys, and Floridas of the world if Vanderbilt was no longer a gimme. I mean, that was the case for Florida last year, right? Right? They lost to Vandy. Embarrassing. No one wants to lose to Vandy. Imagine if they could consistently not be the patty cake, not be the bullied kid. Imagine if that could happen. Would be incredible. Guys, I have in front of me right here a list of the programs in college football that I believe are under the greatest amount of pressure. All right, the greatest amount of pressure. By the way, you can still take part in the Vanderbilt contest. I'm looking for a creative idea to get them out of their doldrums. All right. Look, you've got to connect with the community through branding. Okay. The branding for Vanderbilt kind of sucks. You have to make the stadium a cool place to go, which requires money and refurbishments. You got to stop, by all means, selling the tickets to the opposing fans, right? You got to prevent them from doing that. There is a way to police that, Diesel. You know, you've sold your season ticket allotment or however many they sell, 2,000 or 3,000. If you've got opposing fans sitting in those seats, that person you don't sell tickets to anymore. You know what I mean? If you've got Georgia, okay, we're charting the seats here, and in this seat, we've got Georgia Bulldogs fans. Those seats actually belong to a Vandy season ticket holder. You can't do that. You've got to put safeguards in place because it's a joke.
They can geolocate like who's able to buy tickets or not. It's the same way, you know, if you listen to the show that comes on after us, Ryan Horvat always says we can't gamble in the studio. They do a betting show and they can't gamble in the studio because in DC it's illegal to gamble. However, there is a station down the road at Nats Park where if you're inside this perimeter, if you're on the block that Nats Park sits, you can gamble. It's like an island in the sea of places where you can't gamble. So they can geolocate where they are not allowed to sell tickets to. You know, if the answer, and I don't think this is a good idea, Mark, it's add it to the list of your bad ideas that will never come to fruition. But no stadium will ever turn down the opportunity to sell a ticket and make 40, 50, 60 bucks. They're never going to turn that down, ever.
So you think it's a bad idea to prohibit LSU selling out Vanderbilt
It's a
Stadium?
bad idea for any stadium to say, nah, we don't want your money.
Well, the only people buying them are the road fans.
So what? Road fans buy tickets too. Jordan said Republicans buy sneakers too.
But at big time programs, Diesel, they have an allotment of
Sure.
5,000 tickets.
Sure, but
right?
those big time programs also have a ravenous fan base of people who want to go to those games, who can effectively keep those people out. Now, Vanderbilt can sell an allotment of 2,000 tickets to visiting fans if they want to, but they cannot stop. It's called free market capitalism. They cannot stop season ticket holders from turning around and reselling their tickets to somebody else if that's what they want to do with their tickets.
But guess what's actually happening? The actual school is selling tickets to anyone who will buy them. So the school is allowing LSU fans to call. The school is allowing Florida fans to call, Georgia fans to call. The school's got to stop doing that, Diesel.
I don't think you're allowed to ask what school are you a fan of? Yes or no, we'll sell you tickets, or because it's not going to work.
There's no demand for their own tickets.
Right.
You've got to create demand for your own tickets. But I'll tell you one thing, man. Come hell or high water, if I see, I don't know, Diesel, is it legal? If I see the caller IDs from Baton Rouge, can I not sell them a ticket? Is that legal?
Illegal? No, it's incredibly stupid. Again, no person in charge of ticketing in any stadium in this country or in the world is going to turn away somebody who wants to buy a ticket if you've got a ticket available to sell them. They're not going to do it.
Realize how bad that looks. How bad?
Yeah, I know, but in this era where they need every dollar they can get, they're not going to turn dollars down. It's like trying to say a banked in 3-pointer shouldn't count. It means nothing. It's a bad idea.
Well, Diesel, I totally disagree. I completely and totally disagree because what's already happening in college football is they're not caring about the attendance anyway. They're not. All of the money is coming in from the TV contracts. The bowls don't care about the money. Have you seen some of these bowl games, the attendance at some of these bowl games? There's nobody there. Why is it irrelevant to them? Because they're getting money from the TV contracts. So if only 10% of your budget is coming in from ticket sales anyway, take the money from the SEC, take the money from the SEC network, and you got to understand that optics are a part of this. You can't have a stadium that is filled to the brim with Georgia Bulldogs fans or LSU fans. And I realize I'm asking for a short-term sacrifice, but that is the first step, in my opinion, towards making Vanderbilt respectable again. Oh, man, you only have 9,000 people in attendance. How is that respectable? Well, at least they're not all wearing purple. At least they're not all wearing red, okay? I'm getting $53 million a year from the SEC. I'm getting that money from the SEC network. I'm getting that. What do I need the extra 10% to make us look bad for? I'll tell you, Diesel, I do think that matters. I do think it matters. And I think if you were running the Vanderbilt athletic program, you would feel differently. You'd be standing on the sidelines and you'd be saying, we can't have this. You can't have this.
It's easy to say that when you're focused on the trees, the individual ticket buyer. But if you're talking about 5,000 Georgia fans or 5,000 Tennessee Volunteer fans buying tickets at $50 a pop, that's $250,000 that you're turning down week in and week out. Not happening.
Well, it's $250,000 is not, again, they're making $53 million a year from the SEC, and they've only got 8 home games a year, Diesel. So they're turning down $250,000 times 6 home games, $1.5 million. Is PR worth $1.5 million to you? And so if you're saying I'm unwilling to prevent LSU from selling out our stadium, if you're unwilling to do that, then you need a plan to get Vanderbilt fans in the stadium.
If you were a ticketing office head and you were willing to turn down $250,000 a week, you would be an unemployed.
Sure.
You'd be an unemployed person. So again, it's not a feasible option.
I would say if I was running Vanderbilt athletics, I would say there's a lot of things I'm going to, I got to get consensus on with you guys that are not going to be popular. Okay. But the days of Georgia and LSU selling out our stadium are going to end. They got to stop. They've got to stop. Why does it not happen anywhere else? Because Ole Miss and Mississippi State and South Carolina, there's demand for their tickets. There's no demand for Vanderbilt tickets. Anyone can buy them. You and me can buy them. You've got to create demand. But until that day comes, I am shutting down the ability of Georgia and LSU to buy all our tickets. Such a small percentage of athletic revenue is coming from those ticket sales anyway.
Here's the real answer, Mark. And I'm looking up a picture of their stadium to see what it is that it looks like, and if it's a bowl or if it's a double-decker stadium. So it is a bowl. Here's how you do it, Mark. You don't sell the upper sections. You put massive banners on the upper sections, the top half of your section, and you essentially only sell the lower bowl around your stadium. So you don't have to demolish anything to reduce from, I'm taking a guess here and saying it's a 50,000 seat stadium. You don't have to demolish anything to get from 50 to 30. You just don't sell the upper sections. You close them off and you put tarps over them. You sell advertising if you want to. You can brand it with Vanderbilt slogans if you want to, whatever. You just reduce supply. If you reduce supply, you increase demand. That is how you accomplish it. You can't refuse to sell anyone tickets. You can't put geo tags on tickets and say these cannot be sold to anyone who lives in these areas of the country. It doesn't work. That doesn't work. It's impossible. You cannot do that.
Well, then you got to somehow control, Diesel, who's buying the lower bowl tickets, right? Because if you've closed the upper bowl and are selling the lower bowl and all the lower bowls are sold to Georgia, the long-term answer is, of course, to have demand for your tickets. But in the short term, I'd rather have nobody there than to have a full stadium of Georgia or LSU fans there. Rather have nobody there. And, there are ways to do that. They're not popular, but there are ways to do that. Businesses can turn away customers for any number of reasons, and especially when the TV contracts are getting to what they're getting to. The good news is we're going to have Chris Lee on to talk about this at 5:20 p.m. today. We'll pitch our ideas. Texter says, what about introducing the run and shoot high-powered offense? Texter says, Mark, Vandy repair is going to be a several-year process. Take time. This is good. Take a few years and upgrade the athletic facilities to state-of-the-art level, which requires money, which, right, they've been unwilling to pay up until this point, which Clark Lee was given assurances, he's the current Vandy coach, given assurances that they would incorporate that, right, that they would make a financial commitment. Step 2, pay a high-level coach a blank check. Step 3, schmooze the country scene and a high-level celebrity in Nashville for NIL money. Nashville is growing big time, and there's so much untapped college NIL money there. Next will be use it on recruiting. Then you may have a chance. Recruit using the potential of the city. The issue is, UNC, Chris, if you want to tap into the country music money, I was just at a country music show. All these guys are from Georgia. All these guys are Georgia Bulldogs fans or Alabama Crimson Tide fans. They all live in Nashville. Does anybody know of a country music star that's actually a Vanderbilt Commodore fan? Anybody? Fry Bueller?
Roger Carper says, don't tarp it off. Put the fake cardboard cutouts in the seats.
I mean, yeah, it looks bad, right? It looks bad. But does anything look worse than Georgia and LSU selling out the stadium? Diesel, if you were in the athletic department at Vanderbilt, the first question I would say to you is, if I'm the president, I'm saying that ends. What's your plan? Georgia and LSU selling out our stadium, that ends. I need your plan, okay? I don't care about ticket sales. I got $53 million check from the SEC. That ends. I'm tired of having that black eye for our school. We're never going to be anything as a football program having other schools sell out our tickets. Never going to do it. How do we tackle that? That is the question, ladies and gentlemen, for you. All right, coming up next, what college football programs are under the greatest amount of pressure coming up here in 2023? That, my friends, is next, and this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel. We are the fan upstate. We check on Twitter. Tiger Pal Rachel, P1 listener, says, Mark, I love your plan. Put UFC on national television. I love it, but I only watch the prelims because I'm not dropping $70 for every big event. 100% Tiger Pal Rachel. Like, I love the nature of the sport, right? I don't know any of the fighters anymore because none of them are on network television, and I refuse to have to go somewhere to watch it. And I refuse to have to drop a lot of coin to watch it as well. You've got to let us know your stars. And asking us to drop $70, the casual fans, when we don't know who these stars are, is just never going to happen.
Well, the problem is they try to pitch every UFC like it's the biggest event ever. But then there's another one coming up like 3 weeks from now, and another one 3 weeks after that. What are we up to now, by the way? Anybody who's a hardcore UFC fan, like what like the number? It's probably UFC like 350 at this point. And you got to ask yourself, how special is any event if there have been over 300 of them?
It is the next UFC days will be UFC million billion. Okay, that will be the next. That's the next number. Okay, doesn't make any sense. Tiger Pal Rachel, you're exactly right. They've got a recognition problem. Melinda Fowler helping us out, Diesel. It was, thank you, Melinda. Turner Field was prior to Truist Field.
Thank you.
Fulton was the one that came to mind for me as well. At Clueless DFS says, Mark Ryan on air, pay for a coach and tap into that Nashville money. That is how you solve what love the tweets coming in, guys. You tweet the show, they make it on the air.
The answer, Mark.
You text us, and it makes it on the air as well.
The only answer, the only legitimate answer was Deion Sanders. You got to hire the big splash that's going to get everybody talking about you, that it's going to get everybody coming to your stadium to see this guy coach. Deion Sanders was the only answer for Vanderbilt.
Nashville is a star city. Deion is a rock star. You do not have a rock star. And I don't know how. James Franklin was on his way, but James Franklin used Nashville as a stepping stone, used Vanderbilt as a stepping stone.
Hey, the world needs ditch diggers too.
He had Vanderbilt in the top 25, for crying out loud. Good stuff, though. Good stuff, guys. Appreciate all of the tweets coming in. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us get to this. College football teams under the greatest amount of pressure. Who are they and why? Here's my list, all right? I got a list 8 teams deep. College football programs under pressure. First up for me, my alma mater, the University of Florida. Why? Do you guys realize that if Florida drops a losing record this year, and according to Kelly Ford, my friend Kelly Ford, they've got the most difficult schedule in America to reach bowl eligibility with. So in order to have just a decent season, Florida's got the most difficult schedule in America. If Florida has a losing season, it'll be the first time since the 1950s that they've had 3 consecutive losing seasons. The Florida freaking Gators, okay? 3 consecutive losing seasons, and they've got the schedule to ensure that they have 3 consecutive losing seasons. I think West Virginia, Neil Brown, they're not winning in the Big 12. They've continued to not win in the Big 12. Is their biggest problem not the head coach, but their conference? Is their biggest problem not their head coach, but geography? We've spoken to some West Virginia fans on this show. I believe Mike Asti, who's our Pittsburgh Steelers guy, has told us, look, Mark, nobody cares about West Virginia, Texas Tech. We're not traveling down to Lubbock to see West Virginia play Texas Tech. Nobody cares. There's no rivalry there. How is West Virginia not playing Pitt every year? That is a rivalry. That should be happening every single year. Texas A&M is a program under pressure, and it's because of what they're paying their head coach without getting the same results. Do you know that Kevin Sumlin has a better record in conference play in the SEC than does Jimbo Fisher? And why are they paying Jimbo Fisher all this money? Right? Why? I think Texas is also under a lot of pressure. You're the favorite to win the Big 12 this year. The Big 12 wants nothing to do with you winning your conference, their conference, on your way out. Steve Sarkisian, right hire, wrong hire at Texas. There is some pressure there. I think there's pressure at USC this year in Los Angeles. Why? Last year, Lincoln Riley, year one, guns blazing right out of the box, doesn't win the conference. Doesn't win a conference against a vastly inferior Utah Utes roster. Last chance to win the Pac-12 before you leave for the Big Ten. Do you go out with a bang, or do you go out getting bent over? Miami is a program under pressure. Miami flat quit under Mario Cristobal last year. Lost to Middle Tennessee at home. Lost their final 3 games at home by 26, 30, and 40 points. Just got absolutely run out of the building. Clemson dominated them a year ago. You hear coaches all the time say, or, athletic administrators, fans use this phrase, hey, our coach lost the locker room. What would you describe happened to Miami last year? Did Mario Cristobal have the locker room? Losing their last 3 games, all of which by 20-plus points, the team quit. There's pressure on him to build the culture there. So I've got West Virginia, Florida, Miami, Texas, Texas A&M, USC. I've got 2 more. I think Oklahoma and Brent Venables are under pressure this year. He was given an excuse. He was given a pass. It's year one, getting out all the year one kinks. Finished with the same record as Florida. And for some reason, we're kind of acting like Oklahoma's going to be back this year and Florida is not, without any proof of that. Without any proof that Oklahoma is going to be back and Oklahoma is going to be back strong. Where is the proof of that exactly? They're projected to be the second best team in the Big 12, but again, based on what? They were supposed to be better than they were last year. Folks, one of my worst all-time picks, I had Oklahoma making the college football playoff last year. When the season began, I think they started 2-0. I was looking at the schedule. When are they going to lose a game? Oh, they're going to lose many of them. More than they win, right? I think Oklahoma, Brent Venables has got to show this year that Oklahoma is on the way back. And then finally, folks, the last team under pressure in college football, I think the South Carolina Gamecocks. I really do. Traditionally, we see the feel-good, the buzz, the vibes for college football head coaches. They last 3 years. All of the newness, all of the hype and the hoopla and the morale and the culture building, all those feel-good endorphins, right? They last 3 years. This is year 3 for Shane Beamer. I promise you guys one thing. If Beamer drops a 6-6 or 7-6 this year, the feel-good is going to be gone. And we will be sitting here on the air saying, can you imagine how much this changed from one year to another? Win, go 8-4 again, show that you have elevated the bar above what Will Muschamp did, because Muschamp never produced 8-4 years back-to-back. Never did it. And the trajectory continues to be up and up. But believe me when I tell you that the newness, right, the honeymoon phase for a coach in college football is over after 3 seasons. That's when reality hits you. Beamer needs to show that he has actually elevated the bar in South Carolina. And sorry, Gamecock fans, but he hasn't done it yet. The record is the same as Muschamp. The recruiting rankings are the same as Will Muschamp. You've got to show elevation in those 2 areas, or all the feel-good and culture stuff isn't really going to matter.
I can make one solid prediction on that, Mark. If Shane Beamer has a disappointing season in Columbia, exactly 0 of the people who have trashed us, who have bagged on us, who have clutched their pearls, who have ruffled their feathers and said, how dare you make these comparisons? 0 of them will come back and say, you know what? You guys were right. Sorry that I was a little harsh on you.
Well, Diesel, the proof that we have on that is, remember we had the viral segment on Beamer's recruiting has dipped.
Yeah.
Like the recruiting started out on fire, but over the last few months, it's hit a bit of a lull. Is this no cause for concern, or is there trouble in paradise? We posted that. Gamecock fans got all upset. We have not heard, Diesel, a single, oh, yeah, you know what? We've continued to not get recruits. Maybe you guys at the Fan Upstate were onto something. But you know what we did hear from Chris Phillips at the panic level is at fever pitch for those guys right now.
I've only ever heard one Gamecock fan state it clearly that, oh, maybe I was a little harsh. Maybe I jumped the gun. It was our question last week. Is Shane Beamer's tenure ultimately going to end up more like Muschamp or more like Spurrier's? And it was a masterful tease to get people to listen to the audio, because a lot of people did. An awful lot of people did. And someone actually commented, oh, I called you a clown at first, but then I listened to the podcast and realized these guys are making some good points, and I hate it.
Who said that?
We talked about it on the show. I don't remember his name. It was just a random texter, a random response on Twitter.
Yeah.
And right. he said that we were trash or called us clowns or something, and then said, well, I went back and listened to it, and I realized you guys were making some good points, and I hate admitting that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, my friends, coming up next on the show, we are going to ask you the following question: which teams in the NL could prevent the Braves from winning their league and going to the World Series? We'll power rank those next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Wonderful to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. Hello to all the good party people on the YouTube page as well. Fantastic to see you guys. Rocking and rolling here on this afternoon. Let's see here. We have been kicking around some ideas to help out Vanderbilt, to help out schools like that in big cities. What's going on with them? How do you take the next step? What do you do? What are the challenges there? We also, my friends, have for you this afternoon the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. The Elite Eight is rolling on as well. That is coming up in the very, very next segment. So the YouTube page is up for you. The Fan Upstate on YouTube. We are always having the first couple hours of the show on the YouTube stream, as well as the top 5 at 5. Invite you to check us out on YouTube and invite you to click that little subscribe button. We'd love to have you join us, and we'd love to have you on board. So, look, guys, the Atlanta Braves fell last night, 16-13 to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And it's interesting, you know, to look at this team and where they are right now in their quest for dominance. And I know, Diesel, we've got a couple of clips here from last night's Atlanta Braves Arizona Diamondbacks game. Why don't you introduce them for us?
Yeah, so this game, it appeared like it was going to get away from the Atlanta Braves just a little bit. But in this game in particular, Austin Riley was an absolute beast. He hit 2 home runs in the game. This one here from the bottom of the 4th, it made the score 9-8. It was Austin Riley's first home run of the game.
A pitch. Hit to left. Back goes Gurriel. Gone. Braves back in front.
From that point, it looked like the Braves were going to cruise in the game. Austin Riley hit another home run, a 2-run shot to make it 13-12 in the bottom of the 6th. Here's what that sounded like.
Austin straightens it out, hammers it to center field, and it's gone. What a night for Austin Riley. 2 homers, 7 RBI, and the Braves are back in front.
And just as Austin Riley was having one whale of a game, so too were the Arizona Diamondbacks. This one came from Geraldo Perdomo. This was the go-ahead 2-run double, top of the 9th, which made the score 15-13 in favor of the Diamondbacks.
Second, we showed you on the strikeout wild pitch by Corbin Carroll. And now Perdomo sends it to right center, and that'll get to the wall. McCarthy scores. Thomas right behind. Geraldo Perdomo makes it 15-13.
Not a whole lot of pitching in this game, Marco. A lot of hitting. A lot of hitting.
Guess who? Yeah, so the Braves lose 16-13. We were just saying last week they're the only team in the bigs who have won twice as many games as they've lost. That was past tense. They're now 61-32. They would have to win 3 games in a row to be back at that mark. And they're just 5-5 in their last 10, losers of 3 in a row. Look, guys, the mid-season lulls, everybody has them. I went back and I looked at teams that won the World Series, and every single one of them had a mid-season lull. The Washington Nationals actually began their season in 2019, the year they won it all, beat the Astros in Game 7. They started their season 16-27. They won 16 of their first 43 games, and they won the World Series, right? You'll never guess who's in last place in the NL East right now, in the AL East right now. The New York Yankees and their $200+ million payroll. They're over 500. The last place team in the American League East would be the first place team in the AL Central. But the New York Yankees are 50-46. That is last place.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, I know. Very, very hurt.
That's a shame.
Very hurt about this, right? Very, very crushed. Also in free fall. By the way, did you realize, guys, that Tom Petty's song "Free Fallin'" was written about the Tampa Bay Rays in the year 2023? They are at a total free fall, man. Do you know after their blazing start, they've been just a 500 team since then, and now the Orioles are just a game out of first.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Absolutely. You most certainly will. But I want to ask you guys in the NL, if you're a Braves fan, what team scares you the most? You've got storied brands like the Cubs and the Cardinals that are laughingstocks this year. You've got a brand like the San Diego Padres that made the playoffs last year that is disappointing AF. You've got the traditional brands like the Dodgers that are always there. But is that the team that scares you the most if you're a Braves fan in the NL in 2023? Is that the one that, I don't know, that keeps you up at night? You know, the Braves are not playing their best right now. The Philadelphia Phillies are on fire. They're winners of 4 games in a row, now 10 games over 500. There were supposed to be 3 of the top 5 teams in the entire big leagues in the NL East this year. The Mets failed to answer the door. The Phillies started the season not answering the door. Trey Turner, etc., those additions, they're now starting to find their groove, now starting to find their form. You know, 6 teams now make the playoffs from each league, right? And if the playoffs began today, your 6 playoff teams would be the LA Dodgers, the San Francisco Giants, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Atlanta Braves, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Milwaukee Brewers, with the Cincinnati Reds in the hunt, having an outside shot. They are 3 games back in the playoffs right now. Of these teams, Dodgers, Giants, Diamondbacks, Brewers, Reds, Phillies, Marlins, very, very much in the hunt. Luis Ariz for the Marlins had that long run at flirting with 400, the longest one we've seen in quite some time. Which team scares you the most? I might surprise you by telling you for me, the answer is not the Dodgers. Not even close to the Dodgers. I'm scared of the team that gets hot late, that has star power on the roster, that maybe underachieved, maybe needed to put some pieces together over the course of the entire season. You know what team scares me? The Phillies. Right there in your own division. I'm not scared that the Braves aren't going to win the division. An epic collapse would have to take place for that to be the case, right? I'm not worried about that. But I am worried that Philadelphia is going to be the team that puts all the pieces together and goes on a run and gets hot right at the wrong time for Atlanta. We just saw Philadelphia do this to Atlanta, right? We've witnessed this. We've bared witness to this. And this, I think, could end up being, now you got to seal the deal, but it could end up being the best Atlanta Braves team ever. But I'll tell you, man, you look at these standings, and the standings make it seem like the Braves are a runaway to win the NL. You know, no one is close. No one else is really even close to the 600 winning percentage mark. And here the Braves are, kind of scuffling in the middle of the season. No one's really overly concerned. It's a long season, right? Not overly concerned, not overly worried. But a team that absolutely has to find a way to put it together. You're a Braves fan. Who in the NL scares you the most? 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. Let's see what some of you guys are saying via the text line today. Texter says, Mark, UFC, I think it's number 280-something.
Yeah, what's special about something that's blown way out of proportion and there's 280 of them?
Texter says, they have fight nights every Saturday on ESPN. I enjoy it, but I do usually wait until the pay-per-view events are released on YouTube. I mean, what does that mean, Texters? Is like you don't get to see them that night, right?
Yeah, he's not watching them live.
You're not watching them live. Like you're seeing them days later, weeks later, right? Again, think of what they're losing by not having primetime fighters fighting live on network television.
Yeah, you're watching the undercard. You can watch the undercard for free, people that are like 3, 4, 5 fights into their careers.
This is all about short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. You got to have the long-term vision, right? Texter says, Mark, pressure teams in college football this year. Any Big 12 teams not named OU or Texas. Somebody has to pick up the flag before they leave. A lot of pressure for a new flag bearer. I think that's a great point, Texter. A fantastic point. And I would say to you that, the whole league carries the pressure of making sure the traitors, Oklahoma and Texas, don't win. You got 12 other schools in that league this year. It's your job to make sure Oklahoma and Texas don't win. Florida, a texter says, will finish third or better in the SEC East. Go upset Georgia and take care of the game hens again. No one's upsetting Georgia, texter. You know that. No one's upsetting Georgia. But third in the East would be a heck of an accomplishment. Texter says, Mark, we brought in Mario Cristobal to do that. Only culture change he's made is removing the turnover change. As far as I'm concerned, he better get it together. Yeah, Miami's under pressure. Mario Cristobal's under pressure. They bought him out of Oregon, made him a top 10 coach in college football. Bad years happen in year one. If you got some bad apples on your team, you're going to have some ugly results. The Hurricanes did. Let's see here. Texter says, the way Brent Venables has called out Mario Cristobal at Miami and Coach Prime at Colorado, I hope Oklahoma goes 0-12. So says Spur Daddy. He has. Brent Venables was saying, hey, we were 6-7, but not all 6 and 7s are created equal. We didn't lose at home to Middle Tennessee, did we? Shot at Miami. Texter says, Mark, let's see here. Teams in the NL that concern me: the Dodgers, D-backs, Reds, and Phillies. Texter says, Mark, I just told Rob the other day I had a sneaking suspicion the Braves would lose this series against the Diamondbacks, and they have. I think the Diamondbacks and Phillies should definitely concern us. Diamondbacks are using the Braves blueprint. You guys are rewarding me for something right now, and I'm not sure if you realize what I'm doing. I am making sure of late that there's a Braves topic on the rundown every single day. And you guys are starting to reward me for that. If we start to see the download numbers for the Braves pop, that'll really be a consistent thing. But for the last 4 or 5 days, we've had a Braves topic on the show every single day.
Now, Mark, we got a hot take artist on our YouTube comment chat, but he commits a cardinal sin and then he just drops a hot take and then doesn't explain at all why he believes that this is a hot take. Anybody can make up literally anything. It's like, ooh, hot take. So Dylan Legore says, hot take, Georgia will have a so-so year, and doesn't really explain why he believes. Now, he literally just popped in and said shaky quarterback situation. But Dylan, what is your prediction here for a so-so year? Is that an 8-win season, a 9-win season? That's a massive disappointing year for Georgia. And if you're saying that for them a 10-win season is a so-so year, I would love to get your bold prediction there, Dylan. What do you think there? What will Georgia's win total be in the regular season?
Yeah, and I can just take a guess, Dylan, that you do not, or you're not a Georgia fan, because if you're a Georgia fan, you wouldn't be making this prediction, right? And you're not offering us the why. Why? Look at the schedule. Where are the losses there?
10-2 is Dylan's prediction for Georgia this year. 10-2.
So a loss to Tennessee and a loss to who else, right? Based on what? You had them losing to Tennessee, Diesel.
I did.
You did have them losing to Tennessee. Let's see here. Texter says, Vandy needs to do a country concert or like up-and-coming artists to keep it cheap or start marketing their games to bachelorette parties. LOL. Man, they got to do something. But you damn sure got to prevent LSU, Georgia, Florida fans from selling out your stadium. That's a joke. Texter says the Phillies are a perennial thorn in the Braves' side. That's the team I'm most concerned about. Texter says Texas and OU will get everyone's best last shot coming out of the Big 12 and will get everyone's best shot coming into the SEC it is not going to be fun for them. You know, I got something cool to share with you guys at 5:40 today, but I spoke to my allergist today, his name is Dr. Coolin, and he is a Gamecock fan. And he said, Mark, like, are you hearing, like, are Gamecock fans excited about Oklahoma and Texas being in the SEC? And I said, no fan is excited about Oklahoma and Texas being in the SEC. Like, if you're an SEC football fan, are you excited about that? Now, you know that means your school is going to get $16 million more a year. All right? Which is another reason, Diesel, why Vandy shouldn't care that much about ticket sales, right? If they sold out their stadium, they wouldn't get $16 million. And Oklahoma and Texas are bringing that into them. And so if it helps Florida, for instance, my school, with improved facilities, improved recruiting budgets, if it filters down to other sports, I appreciate that. But what I don't want is for Florida's ceiling to be 8-4. And that's kind of what it feels like right now. And my allergist said to me, like, I'm not excited about this. Like, I'm not excited about, like, you know, just being pushed further down the pecking order. And that's exactly what it feels like is happening right now. No more divisions. You know, the SEC with no divisions is going to look a lot like the English Premier League table. You're going to have 16 teams in there. And how demoralizing is it going to be for the programs? I'm not saying who they are, but maybe, I don't know, possibility of Mississippi State, South Carolina, Ole Miss. What if like 8th or 9th is the best you can do in the SEC year in and year out?
It's time for relegation.
Let's make it happen. All right, we have got, my friends, coming your way next. We have got the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. The Elite Eight is coming your way, and it is next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel, the Fan Upstate. My friends, it is time to continue the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket this afternoon. And we have an announcement to make. Kevin Garnett won the Twitter vote yesterday. He won the Twitter vote last night. David Pearson won the text line vote yesterday. The winner of yesterday's matchup between David Pearson and Kevin Garnett, and the first entrant into our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket Final Four, our conclusive crowning of the Upstate's favorite athlete of all time, by way of you on the text line, David Pearson. David Pearson has made it all the way to the Final Four as a 3 seed. He upset number 2 seed Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Now David Pearson has taken out Kevin Garnett. David Pearson is in the Final Four. Diesel, expect a lot of angry people on Twitter who are going to say, wait, Kevin Garnett won. These are people that are not listening to the show on a day in, day out basis. They don't understand that votes come in by the phone, that votes come in via the text line, that votes come in via Twitter, that votes come in via Facebook, that votes come in all of these different areas, right? So David Pearson has beaten Kevin Garnett and has advanced to the Final Four of the Upstate's favorite athlete region. And, my friends, it is important, if you're going to be the Upstate's favorite athlete, that people in the Upstate like you. There's a lot of folks in the Upstate who don't have a positive impression of Kevin Garnett, and it has nothing to do with race. Love Marcus Lattimore, love Jim Rice, love DeAndre Hopkins, love Deebo Samuel, all minorities, nothing to do with race, okay? That is the problem that ultimately fell Kevin Garnett in this bracket. All of which brings us to, my friends, today's bracket matchup. All right? And as soon as we announce this, we would love for you guys to blow it up, to blow it out of the water. Here's how you can vote. Via the text line. By opening your phone, going to the text message screen, and typing in the number 71307. Then you hit enter, right? It brings up your text screen. You're going to write the word fan. That's the first word of your text, F-A-N, and then one of 2 names. You can also vote on Twitter. You can also vote on our Facebook page, the Fan Upstate Facebook and Twitter. It's all right there for you. Here is today's matchup, without further ado. Out of the Hall of Fame region, we've got Shoeless Joe Jackson against DeAndre Hopkins. Shoeless Joe against DeAndre Hopkins. And, you know, Diesel, if I'm handicapping this region, this bout, it's about as close to a pick'em as I could possibly make it. Shoeless Joe Jackson gets the historic vote. DeAndre Hopkins gets the recency bias and the Clemson vote. And it's a tight one. It's a 1 seed against a 2 seed. I feel like the seeding for this was totally on point, my friends. You know, in the Elite 8, we had all 1 and 2 seeds and 1 3. And that 3, David Pearson, just made it all the way to the Final Four. I was looking at the voting last night, and a lot of folks on Facebook were saying, man, this is a tough one, man. This is brutal. I don't know who to vote for. How about this one? Shoeless Joe Jackson, DeAndre Hopkins. Let's give you the rundown. DeAndre Hopkins from Daniel High School, which is Central South Carolina. So he got the check for being an elite high school player in the Upstate. Gets a check for being an elite college player in the Upstate. Gets a check for being an elite pro player from the Upstate. But there is that concern there is that concern that DeAndre Hopkins, at the age of 31 and just turned 31, may be already past his prime. Is DeAndre Hopkins going to be a Hall of Fame receiver? 5-time Pro Bowler, led the NFL in receiving touchdowns in 2017, but I think he needs a little bit more on his resume to make the NFL Hall of Fame. 71 touchdown passes caught, 11,298 yards receiving in his career. But again, from the upstate, went to Clemson, lots of success at every single level, 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro. But he hasn't been a first-team All-Pro in 4 years. What do you guys think? Going up against Shoeless Joe Jackson. Here's all Shoeless Joe Jackson did. Career batting average, .356. Was not a massive home run guy, but had 792 runs batted in. Played 13 years in the bigs for the Philadelphia A's, the Cleveland Naps, and the Chicago White Sox, and was a World Series champion in 1917, is in the Cleveland Guardians Hall of Fame, the new name for the Cleveland Indians, but is not in the MLB Hall of Fame. And I wonder if the unlikability factor that followed Kevin Garnett to an Elite Eight loss is going to trail Shoeless Joe Jackson as well here. Because after the White Sox lost the 1919 World Series 104 years ago to the Cincinnati Reds, Shoeless Joe Jackson and 7 other White Sox players were accused of accepting $5,000 each, which would be the equivalent of $84,000 now to throw the series. In September 1920, a grand jury was convened to investigate the allegations. Jackson's 12 base hits set a series record that was not broken until 1964, and he led both teams with a .375 batting average, committed no errors, threw out a runner at the plate. However, the Reds hit an unusually high number of triples to Jackson's position in left field. It was alleged that Jackson admitted to participating in the fix during grand jury testimony on September 28, 1920. Some news accounts quoted this as, so they're saying Shoeless Joe Jackson said this, when a Cincinnati player would bat a ball out in my territory, I'd muff it if I could. That is, fail to catch it. But if it would look too much like crooked work to do that, I'd be slow and make a throw to the infield. That would be short. My work netted the Cincinnati team several runs that they never would have had if we had been playing on the square. However, that precise quote does not appear in a stenographic record of Jackson's grand jury appearance. This is all from Wikipedia. In 1921, a Chicago jury acquitted Shoeless Joe Jackson and his 7 teammates of any wrongdoing. Nevertheless, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the newly appointed commissioner of baseball, imposed a lifetime ban on all 8 players. Regardless of the verdict of the juries, Landis declared no player that throws a ball game, no player that undertakes or promises to throw a ball game, no player that sits in a conference with a bunch of crooked players and gamblers where the ways and means of throwing games are planned and discussed and does not promptly tell his club about it, will ever play professional baseball. So the problem the commissioner had was that Shoeless Joe did not bring those conversations immediately to the proper authorities. What say you guys? Shoeless Joe Jackson, DeAndre Hopkins, where are you going, my friends? Where are you going? Let's get in your votes right now. 71307 on the text line is where you can get those in. You guys on the text line were the deciding vote yesterday because, as you know, Kevin Garnett won Twitter and David Pearson won Facebook. Let's see what you guys are saying. Early votes. Shoeless Joe. Another texter. Shoeless Joe. Shoeless Joe Jackson from Spur Daddy. Shoeless Joe. Shoeless Joe. Broken Wind says Joe Jackson. Shoeless Joe Jackson. I mean, come on, man. LOL. So says Madcraft. Madcraft, why does the unlikable sentiment work against Kevin Garnett but not Shoeless Joe? Texter says Nuke. That's a vote for DeAndre Hopkins. Texter says DeAndre Hopkins. Texter says Shoeless Joe. Texter says Michigan J. Todd says Shoeless Joe Jackson is considered by many to be one of the greatest hitters of all time. Babe Ruth copied his batting stance. Let's see here. And Ty Cobb thought he was a superior hitter. So Michigan J. Todd, who gets your vote? Who gets your vote? I see you saying nice things about Shoeless Joe Jackson, but whom are you voting for? All right, Diesel, you have got an elite level high school football player, an All-American college wide receiver, and a 5-time Pro Bowler in the NFL, DeAndre Hopkins, against Shoeless Joe Jackson, whose accomplishments and black eyes are well known. Where are you going? By the way, Shoeless Joe Jackson, hailing from Pickens County, South Carolina, died in Greenville, South Carolina at the age of 64 on December 5th, 1951.
This one to me is fairly easy. And I'm going with somebody whose name has been smeared for decades without a shred of proof. Without a shred of proof that he did anything wrong. This deposition that you've got is hearsay. So to me, that's not good enough. So to me, you have to toss out all of these supposed improprieties that Shoeless Joe Jackson engaged in, because it sounds to me it comes across to me like a smear job by the media, even though nothing was provable. So that's nothing against DeAndre Hopkins. He's a great football player. But Shoeless Joe Jackson was a generational baseball player in a time when baseball was America's pastime. So I'm going Shoeless Joe.
Diesel, that is an interesting word, generational. Is DeAndre Hopkins generational? He's all pro. He could make the Hall of Fame. I think he's still capable of having 1,000-yard seasons, and a couple more 1,000-yard seasons could get him in. All-state high school player, All-American college player, potential Hall of Fame NFL player versus Shoeless Joe Jackson. But Shoeless Joe Jackson was generational. And I don't know that you can say the same thing about DeAndre Hopkins. So, on the merit side, Shoeless Joe Jackson leads. On the character side, DeAndre Hopkins leads. Because Shoeless Joe Jackson, at the very least, is closely tied to the Black Sox scandal. So who gets my vote? Shoeless Joe Jackson. Shoeless Joe Jackson gets my vote. Folks, we've got a museum for Shoeless Joe Jackson, for crying out loud. Okay, the Shoeless Joe Jackson Museum. As great as DeAndre Hopkins was, is, will be Hall of Famer DeAndre Hopkins Museum. I realize I just said it the way I always do, right? Museum. I'm going Shoeless Joe, man. 356 career batting average. What else needs to be said? 1917 World Series champion. Do you see a guy like Shoeless Joe throwing a World Series?
Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla here makes a solid point. He says Joe batted 375 in that World Series, which is an elite batting average, regardless of what point of the season you're playing in. But in that scenario, in the World Series, is virtually unheard of. Hit the only home run in that series and committed 0 errors. He said, it sounds like Joe tried to win to me. Now, if this quote is to be believed, then Joe was pulling up short on shallow fly balls. He was throwing the ball short to second base, not getting the ball in fast enough. Any number of those things could have been scored as an error, but none of them were. So you're telling me either he wasn't cheating or he was in conspiracy with whoever was keeping the stats on that game as well? I'm not buying it.
And Diesel, just consider for a moment how differently cheating is regarded in different eras. You know, that commissioner without any proof, despite acquittal of these guys, you're banned for life. What do we have just recently in MLB? We have proof the Astros were cheating, right? Banging trash cans, wiretapping, signals. Is their World Series thrown away? These guys are still playing, and we know they were cheating. We know they were cheating the game.
Yeah.
Now the accusation is Shoeless Joe Jackson was throwing the game. Like trying to lose, which is worse than trying to gain an advantage, right? But we have actual evidence that the Astros and other teams in baseball were cheating big time cheaters. And it seems like they were hardly disciplined at all, right? Hardly disciplined in any way, shape, or form. In my case, the Shoeless Joe Jackson accusation does not fit the crime. Spur Daddy says Shoeless Joe Jackson grew up in Brandon Mill Village in Greenville and worked at the cotton mill there so he could play baseball on their textile league team. Ultimately made it all the way to the bigs, man. Shoeless Joe Jackson against DeAndre Hopkins. What do you guys think? Wolverine Joe chimes in. He says, guys, this is a tough one. I was on the fence until you mentioned that Joe has a museum. I vote for Shoeless Joe. So says Wolverine Joe. Wow. Everyone's saying it's a tough one, but yet everyone is voting for Shoeless Joe Jackson.
It should be a tough one. We're in the finals of each region.
Yeah.
This should be a tough decision. It's a good thing that it's a tough decision.
Let's see here. So, gentlemen, do you guys consider Marcus Lattimore a favorite over Jim Rice? Who's the favorite Betsy Rawls against Deebo Samuel? Who's the favorite in this matchup? Who's the favorite to win the whole thing? Here we are in the Elite Eight, my friends. We will crown the Upstate's favorite athlete when all is said and done. And Offsides with Mark Ryan and Diesel will continue. Be right back with you right after this. else the show, and he says, Mark, I think since we're almost on the verge of going to 2 power conferences and everybody else, they should have a system kind of like European soccer leagues, where if you're in the SEC or the Big Ten, you have to finish in the top half of that conference. If you finish in the bottom half 2 years in a row, you get knocked out, and then the top team also, you get bumped into the conference. If you finish in the bottom half 2 years in a row, you get knocked out, and then the top team of the also-rans then gets bumped out of the conference. You want promotion and relegation. I would love that. I think that would be amazing. It'd be awesome to bump the group of 5 teams up and the SEC teams down. And I say that even if my Florida Gators were relegated. But you know as well as I do, that's never going to happen.
Well, right? a big problem with promotion and relegation, why it works at the professional level, is because they have investors. It's where the revenue comes from. They have investors putting money in. They have ownership putting money into the team. So if they need new facilities, the ownership pays for it, or they get the local taxpayers to pay for it. But college is their money comes from their media rights deals. And if, let's say we're saying in Missouri is in the bottom 4 of the SEC and they get bumped out, well, all of a sudden they go from making $50 million a year to making $5 million a year if they bump to the American Athletic Conference. So how like when you have dramatic swings in budgets like that, it becomes incredibly difficult to budget for, to figure out how to fund your program. I mean, if these programs are smart, the big schools would bank as much of that as they possibly could, so that if they did get relegated, guess what? You've got a nice little nest egg of, $150 million that you can spend to hopefully get yourself back up into the Premier League rather quickly. But I've always said, I've always asked the question, how fascinating would it be to take an elite group of 5 program, one that's used to winning between 9 and 11 games a year, who've struggled financially throughout their entire existence, eking by on a $2 million, $4 million, $5 million media rights payout, and you suddenly increase that payout tenfold. Like, they've figured out the organizational side of it. They've got quality athletic directors. They've got great fans. They've got great attendance. They've got something that they can sell to recruits to recruit well at their level. And then all of a sudden you're going to give them an influx of $50 million cash every year. Like, that would be fascinating to watch. And I think we're going to see that with Cincinnati and Houston. Cincinnati, I think, has been more consistent football program than Houston has, but Houston has reached those highs. They've just been up and down, up and down. So you're going to have an elite group of 5 like Cincinnati, and you're going to give them $40-50 million a year as they move up into the Big 12, and let's see what they do with it. But the following question would also be, what would a Missouri do if you suddenly took it away?
About what they do now, which is nothing.
Which is nothing.
Texter says, let's see here. If Betsy Rawls doesn't win the entire thing, this vote is a joke. Texter, I got to let you know, Betsy has barely won both of her matchups. As a matter of fact, if she hadn't had favorable matchups, she may not have won. Now, I, for one, agree with you that Betsy Rawls should be a prime candidate to win this thing. But if you want Betsy to advance into the Final Four, and she's got to get by Deebo Samuel to do it, you best help launch a campaign for Betsy Rawls to make that happen, because she's not having the support right now. People don't know who she is. Another vote coming in for Shoeless Joe Jackson, and we've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere, Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Hope you guys are doing well and enjoying a great afternoon. Here's how you can take part in the show. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate, at Diesel on Radio, at Mark Ryan on Air. That's at MARC Ryan on Air, and YouTube. Please do subscribe. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that's MARC Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. All right. It is time, my friend, to get to a little ditty we call the Top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders, the Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
I think they're washed up, buddy. They're done. They're out of here.
5.
What was that about? Who was he talking about there?
That was Tallahassee Todd, who was calling in. This is a couple of months ago now. Tallahassee Todd, I believe, was predicting the downfall of Clemson football.
How about that? They're done, he said. All right, here we go, my friends, at number 5. We're asking you guys, who are the biggest threats to the Atlanta Braves in the National League? In the National League, who are the biggest threats? Did you hear that hiccup I just fell into? You know when you have that like one really big hiccup that comes out of nowhere and you're just praying, no, not now. I'm trying to think of the worst on-air nightmares, ladies and gentlemen. Have I ever had the runs on the air? You bet. Have I ever had a bloody nose on the air? You bet. Upset stomach, nausea on the air? You bet. I've never had a raging case of hiccups on the air. You know, Bo Jackson is going through this thing where he can't stop his hiccups for over a year. So evidently, like, Bo knows baseball and soccer and brain surgery, but he doesn't know hiccups. That's brutal. Please pray for me, ladies and gentlemen, that the hiccups subside, do not continue. Who are the Braves' biggest threats? If the Braves do not make the World Series this year, it'll be at the hands of whom? I'm going the Philadelphia Phillies. They're on a tear. They've won 4 in a row. Added a lot of talent in the offseason. Very good last year. Made a run last year. Trey Turner, new faces, had to integrate them. Now they're finding their form. The Braves have lost 3 in a row. The Phillies have won 4 in a row. No, I'm not picking Philadelphia to win the NL East. The lead for Atlanta is too big right now. But we said at the All-Star break, Atlanta was the only team in the bigs that had won twice as many games as they've lost. That's no longer the case. Atlanta has now lost 3 in a row. They've no longer won twice as many as they've lost. And I'm looking at these other teams, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, the Marlins, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the contenders in the NFL. I'd be most concerned about Philadelphia if I was an Atlanta Braves fan. What do you guys say about that? Who is Atlanta's biggest threat? Next up.
4.
So what college football teams entering this year are under the most pressure? Here's my list, and I've got 8. West Virginia, Florida, South Carolina, Miami, Texas, Texas A&M, USC, and Oklahoma. A line on each. West Virginia is just not a fit in the Big 12. Not a fit culturally, not a fit geographically. We've had West Virginia media members on this show who have said, yeah, like the fans don't care about going to Lubbock, Texas to play Texas Tech. Like we'd rather play Pitt. Pitt is our rival. And so Neil Brown, West Virginia's coach, is not finding wins as easy as he did at the Group of 5 level. This could be his last year. Florida. A losing season for the Gators this year would be the first time since the 1950s that the Gators have had 3 consecutive losing seasons. South Carolina, pressure on Shane Beamer. He's not on the hot seat, but there's pressure to show that he's elevated the program because the feel-good vibes, the honeymoon phase for a new head coach is over after 3 years. Mario Cristobal had his team quit on him at Miami, so Miami's under a lot of pressure this year. They quit on him last year. He's being paid as a top 10 coach. Why? If he doesn't have the locker room. Texas, Steve Sarkisian wanting to go out with a bang in the Big 12 by winning the whole thing. You don't want to go limping into the best conference in all of college football. Texas A&M is under significant pressure. Why? Because they're paying Jimbo Fisher a king's ransom, right? And they're getting fast food results. Jimbo Fisher has a worse SEC conference mark than Kevin Sumlin did. USC's under pressure. Last year, lost to a team in the Pac-12 championship game, lost to them in the regular season. Utah, that has inferior talent to them. That is coaching, my friends. That's coaching. Now, Lincoln gets a pass. It was year 1. Bronco Mendenhall has a great system. But that excuse is not going to fly with Caleb Williams. Imagine having Caleb Williams and not winning a conference championship. And then finally, Oklahoma, Brent Venables. We're told that Florida is still going to struggle this year, but Oklahoma is going to be back. Well, they both finished 6-7, and they both have second-year head coaches. What's the why there? Why is Oklahoma suddenly going to be back? Because they play an easier conference? We will see. My 8 teams under the most pressure.
Thanks to Jeremy Wardell on our Facebook page, who commented on the podcast of that segment. Said all teams are under pressure to win. I just replied, thanks, Captain Obvious. Yes. Well, I mean, to be fair, Vanderbilt's coach isn't really under a whole lot of pressure to win. Do you think Akron's coach is under a whole lot of pressure to win? Now, this is under the most pressure to win, Jeremy. Most reading is critical. Reading comprehension is critical.
Yeah, every team's under pressure, right? I mean, that goes without saying, but who is feeling the heat the most? Next up.
3.
Nick Saban revealed his favorite cake today. And Nick Saban's favorite cake, and everyone's got a strong opinion about this. There's no middle ground on this, right? Nick Saban's favorite cake is carrot cake.
I love my job.
He loves his cake. Diesel, is carrot cake a top 5 cake? Yes or no?
No. I do like carrot cake, though. I do. My top 5 cakes are
Little Debbie's.
Well, those are good. Those are good. Just off the top of my head, German chocolate cake is fantastic. Regular chocolate cake is great. Oreo cake is GOAT level. I personally just love a good yellow cake because you can top it any way you want. It's kind of the vanilla ice cream. You can put anything on it to make it better. And then a cake better than that. Another cake better than carrot cake. Ooh. That's a tough one.
So Diesel,
carrot cake might be in there. Carrot cake might be in my top 5.
Here's the deal. I'm not really a cake guy. I'm a pie guy. Okay. Cake to me generally is overrated. So if you ask me what cakes do I like, I'll say like ice cream cake. I'll say cheesecake. Neither of these are actually cakes. Of those that actually are, I'm with St. Nick. Carrot cake to me is the bomb. It's amazing. A delicious carrot cake. I don't want nuts in the carrot cake either. Stop ruining the cake by throwing nuts in there. Okay? You're nuts if you do that.
JD Wyatt says pound cake with strawberry juice on it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Good call. Good
Nick
call
Saban
there.
carrot cake for the win. I'm with St. Nick. Next up.
2.
Folks, the Women's World Cup begins tomorrow. I'm going to try to work it into the show. We'll see what the engagement level is like for it. I never make our show, what I'm interested in, right? It's always what you guys are interested in, but I'm really into the Women's World Cup. And we are obviously in an era right now where when you don't like somebody's politics, you cancel them. right? You've canceled Bud Lights. Marketing executives lost their job for what they did that pissed you off about Bud Light. But I wanna challenge you guys on one thing here, okay? Because Megan Rapinoe will be playing for the Red, White, and Blue, and she has been very outspoken about her political standings. Your politics should never dictate your patriotism. Let me say that one more time. Your politics should never dictate your patriotism. If somebody has a take that is harmful to America and you don't want to buy their product anymore, I'm fine with that. This isn't a product, ladies and gentlemen. These are the women of the United States of America going for a World Cup crown. Be above the way you are with products. Okay? There's no product here. This is entirely patriotism. And if you take one thing away from the show today, it should be just that. Your politics should never dictate your patriotism. And finally, number one on the show today. Our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket is now down to the Elite Eight. If you are hearing this message right now, I ask you, I implore you to please get your vote in. Yesterday, Kevin Garnett won the Twitter vote. David Pearson won the Facebook vote. Breaking the tie overall was you guys on the text line giving David Pearson the win. David Pearson beat Kevin Garnett, and as a 3 seed is now our first entrant into the Final Four. Today's matchup is Shoeless Joe Jackson against DeAndre Hopkins in the Hall of Fame region. DeAndre Hopkins has the trifecta, an all-star at all 3 levels. Upstate High School at Daniel High School, All-American at the local school Clemson, right? And an All-Pro in the NFL, 5-time All-Pro. But Shoeless Joe Jackson, as Diesel said, was generational. Is DeAndre Hopkins generational? Shoeless Joe Jackson has a museum in his name. Shoeless Joe Jackson batted .356. But the question is, because Kevin Garnett was voted out in large part because there's a significant part of our population that doesn't like him, there are character question marks with Kevin Garnett. Are those same questions going to fall Shoeless Joe Jackson in the Elite Eight? How do you vote? You open the text screen on your phone. You type in the number 71307. You hit enter. Have the first word of your text be FAN, F-A-N, and then the person that you're voting for. So FAN DeAndre Hopkins or FAN Shoeless Joe Jackson. Do not let your lack of a vote be the difference between your candidate advancing or going home. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. You can text us at 71307. Just start your text with the word FAN, and away you go on the show. Let's see what you guys are saying here on the text line. Votes coming in for Shoeless Joe. Dog Boy says Shoeless Joe Jackson. Thank you, Dog Boy. Texter says, hi, Mark. As always, terrific show. My wife, Steffi, and I, let me see here. My wife, Steffi, and I are big fans. Man, thank you so much. Great to hear from you. And please don't be a stranger around these parts. Invite you to text in all the time. Love hearing from you, buddy. He says, Diesel states that because of Joe's numbers, there is actually no evidence that he did anything wrong. The truth is, there's no evidence that he gave 100% effort either. He also clearly admitted that he took money to throw the World Series and didn't give it back. I would say he did do something wrong. Well, he was acquitted, Texter, and we have very loose testimony. And Shoeless Joe Jackson batted .375 in the World Series. So I get your point. You could come back with, well, Mark, O.J. Simpson was acquitted. but he's guilty as sin in the court of public opinion. You're right. There is a question mark surrounding Shoeless Joe Jackson's character, just like there was surrounding Kevin Garnett's character, and that's why KG, in my opinion, did not beat David Pearson. But in Shoeless Joe Jackson's case, there's the possibility he did nothing wrong. It just depends on who you believe, right? But there is very, very much a question there. By the way, thanks so much for the kind words on the show. Do appreciate it.
Yeah, I think Shoeless Joe Jackson, number one, was his entire team. All of his teammates were victims of an owner that refused to put any money into anything. That's the reason why they're called the Black Sox, by the way, is not because they have some black eye. It's because their owner refused to launder their uniforms. I said, if you want clean uniforms, you got to take them home and clean them yourself. These are professional baseball players who were refused laundry service for their uniforms for an entire season. So you had an ownership structure that didn't care, that underpaid these guys. They were not operating under the same, relative earning structure that baseball players are today. They were earning pennies on the dollar. And you're telling me there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't make that decision and wouldn't take that money. I'm calling you a liar. If you were broke and somebody offered you $80,000, you'd probably take it.
Yeah, but still, Diesel, if you told me conclusively
right
that Shoeless Joe Jackson threw the World Series, he wouldn't have my vote. I'm
right.
But there's a doubt there.
Right. So, I mean, that was only the first half of my point. The second half that I was getting to was all of these statistics show or suggest, not show, but suggest that Shoeless Joe, it sounds to me like he took the money and then said, well, screw that. I'm not actually throwing this thing. I just wanted to take the money. And so he was playing both sides of this thing. I don't know. That's just my perception of what might have happened. And he might have taken the money without any intent whatsoever to actually throw the game. So I don't have any problem with Shoeless Joe Jackson. This quote that supposedly proves that he cheated, that he threw the World Series, it's not in any official records. So anybody could have just made that up and put it into a piece of media. Hell, the owner of the Black Sox or the owner of the White Sox, could have put it in a reporter's ear to put that into a newspaper article. And then all of a sudden it's taken as fact.
Texter says, Mark, I hate to say this, but I think the Braves' biggest threat is the Phillies. Texter says, I think it's the Dodgers. They have a deep farm system and will make some key trades at the deadline. Just took 2 out of 3 in Baltimore. Yes, they did. Texter says, heartbreaking loss for the Braves last night, but it was a good game. It was a home run-filled game. Crazy how in baseball 7 pitches can ruin everything. Guys, you're rewarding me for talking Braves every single day. I love it.
Well, we need you going on to the Facebook and our Facebook and Twitter pages. When we post content about baseball, you need to get into the comment section. You need to talk about it, because if we post it and like one person comments or it gets 5 likes, as opposed to anytime we talk Clemson and South Carolina football and it gets 150 comments and 100 likes, what do you think we're going to post more of?
Right. And look, Diesel and I know that we're kind of known, our MO is college football, but look, guys, you got a lot of you hear the CBS shows that we do. Maybe college football is 10% of those shows. It's 80% of our local show. We're capable of talking about other things and having engaging conversations on other things. So if you like the baseball content, please engage with it. Thank you guys so much for what you're doing on the text line. Texter says, Mark, and here's the thing, Diesel. I'm now getting a recommendation for a cake from multiple people. When you hit me with multiple recommendations, your boy here is getting the cake. All right. Texter says red velvet cake. Then we have our first mention. Here it is, Diesel. Sweet potato cake from Brick Street Cafe. I got to be honest with you. The sound of that doesn't sound delicious to me. But I'm hearing you say that. Then I'm hearing our friend Tiger fan Clint say, you guys have to go to Brick Street Cafe and get some sweet potato cake. It will change your life. You give me multiple recommendations from the same store, and the same cake at said store, bro, we're there. We're there. Diesel, why don't you bring one of those to the studio tomorrow for us? What do you say, buddy? Let's make it happen. UNC Chris says, I love ice cream cake every day of the week. Vote for red velvet cake. And then, wow, great job on the Upstate's favorite athlete vote, guys. Shoeless Joe Jackson, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Shoeless Joe, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Shoeless Joe Jackson. D-Hop from T-Experience. DeAndre Hopkins. D-Hop was suspended last season over PEDs. Very, very good point, Dexter. Also a character concern. How come that doesn't stick to NFL players? Shoeless Joe Jackson, not even close. One of the best of his time and one of the most symbolic athletes for that era of the Upstate's Mill Hill history. Texter says, that text made me think Shoeless Joe did admit to shorting throws. Well, in a kind of loosely based testimony, Texter, was that 375 with nobody on and he hit 0 with runners in scoring position? That is a loose saying you short hop throws. That is loose. Texter says, love the show. Listen every day on my way home from work. It's Shoeless Joe Jackson. If you build it, he will come. Text from Josh Bontrager. Josh, great to hear from you, buddy. Invite you to text us any day you'd like. Texter says, Shoeless Joe, got all my guys at the plant listening to you guys now. P1 Bonehead. That's what happened, Diesel. That's what happened. We've got a plant listening, and everyone's firing in.
Love it.
With Shoeless Joe. That's tremendous. That's tremendous. Shoeless Joe. Appreciate you guys. Sweet potato cake from Horny Grill in Charleston. They get it on there, don't they? It's closed now, but sweet potato cake is the truth. Yeah, that cake is the best thing you can ever get, sweet potato cake. Mark, the sweet potato cake will blow you away. Had it for our wedding cake. So says Wes. Wes, I'm on it, brother. I'm on it. Paul Dean Scratch made apple pound cake and pumpkin pound cake is delicious. Well, who is that? Paula Dean's. What is that?
Paula Dean, the chef?
No.
Paula Dean.
No. I know Sarah Lee, Diesel. Is she related to Sarah Lee?
Wow.
Who the heck is Paula Dean?
That's like saying you don't know who Emeril Lagasse is.
I know Emerald. He's Cajun.
Yeah?
You know? Yeah, I don't know Paula Dean. Never heard of her. If I talk about professional wrestling on YouTube, will I get banned? No. We just won't talk about it on the show.
Do you know who Justin Wilson is?
No.
Wow.
No. Who's
we
that?
We all grew up watching Justin Wilson cook on TV. He was that guy with the he always wore the gray shirt and the red suspenders.
Oh.
He was a TV chef. Paula Dean was a TV chef. Rachel Ray was a TV chef.
Anthony Bourdain committed suicide, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anthony Bourdain. Yeah, I wasn't a cooking show guy, Diesel. I
wasn't a cooking show guy either, but I grew up on this stuff. I know who these people are.
Who is Paula Dean? Never heard of her. Hominy, not horny. LOL. Wow. Love you. Thoughts and opinions on the Baltimore Ravens this season? Can do it, Texter, but can we hold until 6 p.m. on that? It's extremely hard to pronounce my last name correctly, and you did it perfectly. Thanks. Sincerely, Josh Bontrager. Absolutely, Josh. Better than I did for Paula Dean, right? All right. Had the sweet potato cake from the Brick Street at my rehearsal dinner for our wedding. It was the talk of the night. See, Diesel, this is where I feel like people are screwing with us. Texter wants us to get the dumpling cake from Something Wong. You got me, Texter. You got me. I am Ron Burgundy, an anchorman. I will read whatever's on the text line. All right. We have, now I've got my sweetie texting me. All right. The phone is lighting up to my left, and she's saying sweet potato cake at Brick Street is the all-time goat, babe. We're definitely getting it if it's gluten-free. Well, babe, if it's the all-time goat, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn if it's gluten-free or not. I'll take the hits. All right. Just, sweetheart, let me have the downstairs bathroom that night, okay? If it is not, in fact, gluten-free. Let's make it happen, sweetheart. Brick Street Cafe, sweet potato cake, ACC and SEC team preview series coming up next, right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate.
I think we went a little long.
Yeah, just a wee bit.
Stream, it's been a blast again, as always, man. Thank you guys so much. Trey says Paula Dean's main ingredient was butter and a touch of racism. Wow.
Is that why I haven't heard of her? Wow.
No, she was massive.
What did she make?
She was massive. She was everywhere. She
is
was like
the
a
guy-
southern cook.
Who is the guy, Diesel, that does like the shows that with blonde hair? He's got blonde hair and he criticizes everybody, really harshly criticizes them.
Oh, Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay. Yeah.
Okay, so you only know who the TV chefs are who off themselves and yell at people.
Basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
Basically.
Guys, it's been a blast. Thank you again. As always, we'll be back doing the stream again tomorrow. So make sure you're here. If you haven't yet, click that subscribe button. Go jump in the comment sections on all this content. Like JD said, man, if you guys post this stuff about the Braves, we'll be there. Well, JD, we posted Braves content the day before yesterday, and it got 1 share, and it was yours. We posted about the Braves like a week prior to that. It got 5 likes and 3 comments. There's not enough conversation about it. Hopefully we'll build it, but that's where you guys come in as well. So, hey, thank you again. As always, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.